welcome to this Urban Tango Nights Talks video. Today I'm delighted to be joined by James and Nikki of Tango Libre, which is a fairly new tango group based in Exeter in Devon. So thank you, Nikki and James, for joining me today. Hope you're well.
Well, good to be here.
So I suppose the first question then is, how did Tango Libre come about?
So in our local area, it's quite a traditional scene, but we'd been to several events where we'd had two separate rooms, and I really enjoyed being able to dance to all different types of music. So be it at the Tango Feast, and then when we went up to Bristol at South Bank, it was like a new introduction to a different type of music, and it was just really exciting, and I found it much easier as someone coming in who wasn't familiar with tango music. I finally felt like I was really dancing to it, and I wanted other people to try and have that opportunity to experience it. So we were really keen to try and offer something different in Exeter and give people that chance.
Okay, so how long were you dancing tango before you actually came across sort of, I'm assuming you're talking about like the alternative and neo sort of tango music?
We were probably dancing tango not that long actually, because the Tango Feast, which is some of the first events that we went to, was there run by Fernando Guidi, who's our teacher, and local events that he holds 4 times a year. And he had an upstairs room at the Feast which played all sort of like non-tango music and alternative and neo music, and it was really great. We really enjoyed that, and like I say, it was a lot easier for us to dance to that music than some of the tango music is not as. It's not that accessible, it's not that familiar, whereas some of the tunes there, we've grown up with those tunes, they're really familiar to us, so it just made it a lot easier.
Yeah, that's something that I found out when I was teaching ballroom, was that when you played a piece of music that, in my case, I was teaching university students, when you played a piece of music that they were familiar with, they dance so much better to it because they no longer have to figure out timing. They don't have to try and figure out what's coming up next. It just sort of generally flows for them. So what type of music, obviously it's the neo and alternative stuff, but is it sort of the more sort of rock stuff that you're into, sort of acoustic ballads, or was it a mixture of other stuff that you were hearing, or is it just sort of things like Gotan project that you found that you were drawn to?
I mean, starting off, I guess the music that I thought of as nuevo was Gotan, Bajo Fondo, but actually then this idea of having an alternative scene, it just offered much more variety. I'd been to a neo event where all of the music was, it just sounded the same all night, the neo, and I thought actually it doesn't need to be like that. Like at South Bank, where it was just completely varied, I actually think you can get a bit of a bad name for neo, saying that it's not challenging, but actually it's a huge scope of different types of music. So what
potentially all music from every genre. The main thing that we promote in Libre is saying that you can dance tango to anything, and so in what we choose to play, we've kind of set out to prove that.
So we have rock and hip hop and classical music. Jazz is a real favourite, but the whole mix. And quite early on, we'd ask people to share ideas that they would like to dance to, because that was the other thing. When this first started, it provided a forum for all the things that I wanted to try and dance tango to. I could just add it into my playlist. So it was giving people that other opportunity to be really engaged with it and say, actually, I'd like to have a go to that as well.
Yeah, so we'd have a tanda every time where it'd be suggestions from the people going to Libre. They'd send their suggestions first, and then we'd play what they wanted to try to dance to.
And of course, it's live and learn. You know, we've cleared dance floors
Yeah.
with some of the choices.
Yeah, that can happen when you start to try and find what type of feel. There's something that Wayne said that in his interview that we did, was that you can sometimes play a track and it will just kill off the dance floor and then you have to rebuild it back up again. So it's always interesting. You play a piece that you think everybody will like and everybody sits down, and then you play a song where you go, nobody will possibly like this. It's I wouldn't say it was barely danceable, because like you, I believe that most things can be danced to with tango, but then you get everybody up on the floor, so it's either hit or miss, or I don't know if it just comes down to experience. Because I suppose, how long has Tango Libre been going for now? When did you hold your first event?
I think we've had about 9 of them now, and so it's been running on. I mean, we started off doing them pretty much every other month, and now we look like we're going to have sufficient numbers to try and continue it more regularly. We're now trying to get monthly bookings, although obviously current circumstances have just stopped it. I think just as we published our next list of dates, it's all frozen. But yeah, you don't know obviously how things are going to be received, and we didn't know whether people would be keen to try something new, but we've had quite a bit of support. So it is something that we do want to try and continue and build on. So, you know, we're growing our music, and, you know, with the music choice, it's like anything in life. You can't please everyone all of the time. We have really varied tastes, and it's the same in the traditional tango scene as well. And I think you have to be, embrace people's and cater to different people's tastes, because certainly if I go to traditional night, there's certain types of traditional music that I love, and there's other types that, you know, wouldn't be my cup of tea, but for some other people, you know, that's their preferred. And I think that works exactly the same way in the alternative scene.
Yeah, I think that's something that I found while running events, that if you've pleased one person for the entire night, that means you haven't pleased somebody else for the entire night as well. So there's always that sort of balancing act. But there's also that sort of, if you have a very narrow taste in music, and you just play the same type of thing over and over again, so say acoustic covers of, say, pop songs, then it gets fairly boring fairly quickly. So having that huge variety is what I think is needed. So also I picked up on, you said you play in tandas. Are those sort of strict tandas, or are they separated with a cortina, or are they more sort of just groupings of music that then build that have no sort of real segregation? Or
No, we play tango, tango vals, tango, tango, milonga, and we play our cortinas, our traditional tango tracks. And milongas can be anything from, they're just faster groups. So that would be, where quite often we might play a hip hop tanda, or it might be a modern milonga tanda, or sometimes we are big milonga fans, so it might be a traditional milonga tanda, but it will, you know, vary along those times, or it might be a fast jazz tanda, or a funk tanda.
When we went to one of the first alternative events, one of the things that people found quite frightening was when you get up and you don't know when to sit down. And so we were trying to think of ways that we could try and get people to feel comfortable. So it gave a bit of separation. It also had the advantage of having a traditional track. So if you didn't feel confident to get up and dance straight away to the alternative music, you weren't going to be sat out all night. So the idea was to provide a bit of structure and a framework, because otherwise sometimes at these alternative events, if you get up and dance with someone and you don't realise that you can choose when you want to step out of it or not, it actually is quite awkward and uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's something that I found, was that even if I'm go to a traditional event with tandas, I'm very rarely dance a whole tango with somebody. I know that maybe, according to some etiquettes, considered rude, but to be honest, I really don't care about that. I think that if I'm dancing with somebody, I'm going to dance as well as I can for as long as I want to dance. And as soon as I no longer want to dance laughing, I'm sort of doing them a disservice, and it's probably more insulting that if I don't bother to dance well just for the sake of setting a time that I want to finish dancing 3 songs with them. So yeah, it's a good way of going to have the tangos, especially at an event which, if you are set in a more traditional area of the country, just to give that familiarity.
Yeah,
and also
the framework.
Yeah, and also if you do just try playing things without the cortina or that sort of section, it can, well, I wanted to give, if you're a DJ, it gets you sort of stuck in, as I say, in that rut, and things can get a bit boring. And you just go, I'm just going to play another slow song, and eventually you realise you've played 8 in a row. Or the other thing is, people tend not to count. So if you are still going to dance 3 songs or something, people will lose count. So it's a way of bringing it around. So were you surprised by what sort of people were coming to your milongas when you first started running them?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been really lucky because we're really well supported by friends locally, and just people who were, just willing to give it a go. And yeah, some of the people that have turned up, I don't think it's necessarily still their cup of tea. They wouldn't choose it over a traditional event, but the fact that they turned out to have a go it was great. And it was just really exciting that people would come and have that experience. And even people who I don't think will come back said that they'd enjoyed the night and were up dancing to tracks that I would never have dreamed to have seen them dancing to. So I think anything like that is really positive. And the other group of people that we've had lots of people who are quite new to tango coming there, and what we've really tried to create is a very relaxed atmosphere so that people don't feel like they're being watched, they don't feel like there's any pressure there, because it should be fun and enjoyable. And so we've had lots of just sort of newbies who haven't really been in the milonga scene, who've been able to come there and feel like it's a social event.
Yeah, we try to light it darker than most traditional tango events. Most traditional tango events, because of the cabaseo, they tend to keep it quite bright, don't they? So that people can see across the floor clearing. Who's the thing? We're not worried about that. We put all the people together in one small area, so it actually becomes quite sociable. And then we bring the lights down, so like it's more like nightclub lighting. So you're less exposed, so you can, bump your funky stuff without worrying too much about people sort of like watching you. So just makes it for a more, like relaxed, chilled out. It's more like a night out as opposed to formal tango, serious milonga.
Yeah, I suppose I haven't had a chance to make it over to X2 yet. For one, we were hoping to actually make the April edition, but I think it was April. It was either April or May. It was one which was pretty imminent to now. So we are planning on coming over there. So it'll be interesting to see what your setup is like. Do you have? Is it your arrangement, the floor, and then people are sat around it, or do you have like the separate seating area?
We have a separate seating area, so like all at one end, we put all the tables and chairs out there. If we get more people coming, like the last time we actually got more, so we then had to come down the sides a little bit. But we try to keep everyone basically together, so everyone returns when they sat around, so that it just makes it easier for them to be sociable with more people, as opposed to if everyone's around the edges in, say, one line all the way around, and you've only got the person sat beside you on either side that you can really talk to comfortably. So that's less of a social event, more about, it's all about the dancing. We want it to be a mix of both.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's the same thing that we try to do. Well, you've been to one of our events, and in the ball, obviously we have to sort of sit people around some of the edges, but we've got the area outside which people can go off and sit on. But as sort of the welcome along go on the Friday and the one on the Sunday, we sort of have that sort of real separate area for people to go and sit on. So yeah, I think the social side of things is really important. I think especially for do you teach at all, or have any plans to go into the teaching side of things?
No, we're not doing teaching, although there's been like interest expressed about how to dance to alternative music. I mean, the way I dance is very traditional, but I suppose it's opened out, doing more kind of open embrace. So I think people are curious about doing some of what they perceive to be kind of open embrace moves and lifts and the more kind of flamboyant stuff. But no, I haven't really. Some of the events, like at your festival, to have the opportunity to do some of the workshops with Nick and Diana, it's really exciting actually, to see some of the possibilities.
Yes. Well, the reason I was asking is largely because obviously you then have to, for running an event, you're sort of just relying on just the general Tango community from there, so you're not sort of creating your own scene. That is sort of a double-edged sword, because if you have, like we have a class where we know people from our class are going to come, but it sort of acts as a different thing because other people from other groups may not feel comfortable coming to an event organised by teachers of another group, which is one I say it's awkward, but it's unfortunate more than ever. People do have that attitude, but as it also allows you to have like this sort of uninterrupted, as there's no sort of political agenda. You're not trying to do it to support to get more people into your classes. So I suppose that's one thing that's been good, is if you can keep on going like that and you can generate support for yourself, is always a positive.
Well, so far it's been really well, and it's been growing and building each time we've put an event on. I mean, there are newer people coming along, and like I say, they found it quite accessible, as we were saying about, but we haven't really thought about teaching.
No, this is sort of quite a new thing, and I mean, so far we've had for my birthday last year, we got a band in and had live music, and that was really exciting. But it's that balance of testing out whether people want to do this or not, and obviously not putting too much financial risk initially into providing these events, but it's more about to see where this goes. So it'll be interesting to see if we keep getting regular support. Then it would be really nice if people want to do, either guest teachers or I would love to have more live music events. If we were able to offer that, that would be great. But it just depends, and it's a bit trial and error at the moment. Still, it still feels quite early days.
Yeah, I think some people are probably still coming, not because it's their thing, but they're still just sort of like exploring it, experimenting it. There might be, some people are probably coming just to support us as well in our adventure. So it remains to be seen whether it'll continue to grow or to be sustainable as it is.
Yeah, it's always that sort of risk that you always take, that how there's always that temptation to try and rush into something and try and make it bigger and bigger, and then commit to sort of trying to have live music, everyone, and then if you do, there will always be a sort of general dip at some point, which then you always have to fight through. What type you had a gypsy jazz band, I believe?
Skedaddle, great band. They're based in kind of Totnes or Ashburton sort of way. We saw them at a friend's wedding first. I know the guy, but really, really fun band.
But one of the members of the band is actually a tango dancer as well, so it was really exciting, and they actually tried a few tango tracks as well. So, but it went down really well. It was a lovely evening. It was really nice. So it would be great even to be able to have them back at some point. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, there's lots of options with sort of general live music. There's obviously Bristol's got some live music bands. But one thing we're trying to look now is just seeing what possibilities you can have from just having live music at an event. Not even having like a specific tango band, but not quite running it as open mic style session, but sort of, having maybe a couple of musicians in, so like say a singer, guitarist to do, well, let's say a couple of tandas or equivalent of a couple of tandas, and then maybe having a different singer and doing stuff like that, which I think might be an interesting sort of idea to go through.
And one of the other things is that if you're not dancing all night to it, or you don't feel comfortable, or you're still quite new to the scene, with live music events, you can still just go there and appreciate the live music. It still makes it a really lovely, enjoyable night out.
Yeah, as you probably realise from our events, that we love live music, and just trying to find opportunities to dance to it is amazing. It's like I can dance rock and roll, but I don't particularly like dancing it. I find I get knackered too quickly doing it. But there's a lot of rock and roll clubs around in South Wales, and you follow them on Facebook, and they've always got live music on it, and you just get so jealous as a tango dancer, going, I wish there was some place that I could go this weekend where there is some form of live music to interact with. Where do you see do you have any sort of ambitions for the club at the moment then, to take it, say, in the next sort of 2 years?
I think our answer might have been different if we weren't in this current lockdown, because originally, it was initially just having that kind of monthly commitment of building up the events, and we just found a new venue, which was really positive, and we'd got a lot of good feedback about it. So it was going to be quite an exciting year of trying to have those regular events.
We booked it every month for the whole year. So it's a real shame that we're obviously not able to run those. But hopefully that's, just to get it going and keep it and sustain it is our main hope for at the moment. If nothing else, it means that we get to go at least once a month and dance to music that we love all night long. It's exhausting, actually. We get so tired on those nights, but they're such good fun for us.
Yeah, we kept saying we'd sort of take stock as we went. So it was quite a big commitment for us even to try and find these monthly bookings to the end of the year. Because I was saying, let's just take each one and see how it goes. But there's that thing of, if you want to build up a group of people, then you need to have kind of regular commitment to it. So it was already quite a big step to get to this point. So I think it's going to take a bit of time to start building it back up again. And then we'll just have to see over the year how the numbers work out. But so far, so good. It's been really surprising.
Yeah, I was surprised by when I Googled how long it takes to get from Swansea to Exeter. According to Google, it's not actually that long if you've got light travel. It's only about 2.5 hours. So I'm assuming, I know it's about an hour and 20 minutes to Bristol. So that means it must only be about an hour and 10 minutes from sort of Bristol way down to Exeter. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right. And the new venue that we've got is right on the main road. So it'll be so much easier. Our old venue was right in the centre of Exeter, and actually the time is getting across Exeter. Whereas now you pull off the main road and you're at the venue, and there's loads of parking. So it's quite an easy destination now. I mean, we get groups of people coming up from Cornwall. We've had people come down from Bristol. So I think it is open. I think the scene will grow, hopefully, and obviously just having the links between Swansea, Bristol, I think that all helps.
Yeah, it's as we've been doing this not that much longer than you. We ran our first tango event in 2017, having taken over the club in February 2016. So as far as like the learning curve, we're not that much far ahead of you compared to, say, people like Eduardo or the other people we talk about who've been going for decades. It's so this is something I want to try and probably try and explore a bit with you, is how, for me, was we took over an existing club, even though it had sort of wound down significantly due to problems with venues, and then building it back up after we took over. Obviously, you've started from fresh with it. Did you, what sort of planning have you actually had to try and do for it? Obviously, it's finding a venue, which you've managed to do. What did you try to do for your sort of advertisement type of thing?
Well, the other awkward thing, of course, was trying to not clash with any other local events. So that was always, so timetabling was tricky. Advertising, word of mouth. So we talked to people. Facebook, of course, in this day and age is everything. All the events are put out on Facebook. And then there's a number of groups which are like sharing, like Tango Southwest, Tango Exeter, and others, Alternative Tango, that we can sort of like share that, those events on. So it's really, really, really great that those things exist nowadays to make that a lot. I mean, in the old days, it'd have been like flyering and word of mouth, and that was it.
Yeah, and then you would really have to find some local areas. So yeah, we do a lot of our advertisement through social media and Facebook, but we found that word of mouth, if you get people who recommend you, then things tend to grow. So you're always trying to look for that sort of idea of recommendations. It's one of the reasons why, as you've seen in our newsletter, that we have the lists of events for people to attend. So you've been on there for the past 6 months or so, I think. So it's all, I think it's always trying to get that reputation of trying to move on. But it's also, are you trying to present yourself as sort of like just that one sort of general night, what the atmosphere of that is, or are you more interested in sort of promoting the club sort of thing and creating the branding of it? We've always gone for, as Urban Tango Nights, promoting it as a brand, because we've got all the different elements of the teaching side of things, running the events, but we go for more diversity in events with things like the festival and sort of general milongas and even events which are outside of tango. So for us, it's the brand of Urban Tango Nights which is important, rather than the actual I suppose trying to create what the established event is. So which one are you?
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I think in some ways it's been quite a focus. We've tried to share pictures of what it looks like on the night, because if I go somewhere new, or I'm going to make the effort of going somewhere new, unless I've heard from someone that they've had a really good night, I would like to get a feel of what the atmosphere is going to be like there. So if I had some examples of the types of music that were going to be played, or I could see that it was quite a dark room, those things would be plus points for me. So I quite like that idea of saying this is what the event is about, rather than having like a really strongly branded name of being associated with Tango Libre. It's more for me about the actual feel of the event.
Well, of course, that's in the Tango Libre. It's tango free, isn't it? And we used that in as much as, it's like as in tango free, as in no tango, as in like sugar free.
Yeah.
But of course, it's a little joke there, really. But we're just trying to sort of like unshackle it a little bit from the narrowing in some areas.
Yes, it's a good way to go, because when you actually see the Libre word, you always think, well, where is it going? I think most people would see it as like sort of free tango, so like a free-spirited form of tango, which does sort of entice sort of again dance. I've said this in multiple interviews now, just dancers rather than sort of people who want to just dance what they consider tango to be and for to explore. So
I suppose we're using the Spanish language still, so we're still rooting it, you know, in its heritage. You know, we know that, you know, the moves we're doing are all in its heritage as well. So we're not denying any of that. We're not saying any of that is bad or anything. We're just trying to add to it, I guess. You know.
do you sort of classify yourself as sort of neo-tango or alternative tango, or?
We've always been quite careful to call ourselves alternative, because of this idea of like neo being quite a narrow, it's got a sort of connotation that goes with it, the word neo, and it's certainly some of the music that I've heard abroad was this idea of neo tango. So I think we try and say alternative.
Yeah, that's sort of.
But I don't like the pigeonholing.
Yeah,
I like, for
again,
me,
the free part is something like, so we're playing kind of neo, we're playing the wave, if that's a different thing. We're playing traditional and we're playing alternative. So I really do like the whole free thing.
Yeah.
Just because it's open, we're trying to be inclusive rather than exclusive.
And I don't like this sort of the two camps idea that if you like traditional music, you can't like alternative music, and that there's a sort of like them and us, which is just the most ludicrous, ridiculous thing, because we dance because we enjoy it, and most of us aren't professional dancers. So we should try and include everyone and be inclusive instead of having these sort of you have to put your colours in one camp or the other, which to me is just so narrow-minded, because I love some of the traditional music and that's been my introduction to it, but I love the alternative music as well.
You know, we come across some people who in the neo scene who are as sneering of the traditional scene as some of the traditional people are as sneering of the neo and alternative scenes.
Yeah.
That's silly, you know.
I think sometimes people just overthink it, you know. I think there's perhaps too many essays, and actually we should just be able to enjoy ourselves and like what we like.
Yeah, that's the attitude that I try to promote is that's something I found when I always got really confused with neo tango, what actually it is. Because when the first properly neo tango event that was actually advertised as neo tango was one in Bristol, and they sent out like this PDF thing of what neo tango is, and you're reading it and you go, oh, that's not bad. It's like it's sort of encouraging all tango and allowing people to dance as they wish and follow what rules they wish. But then when you start looking actually at neo tango events, or ones that are labelled as neo tango, it's all just, there's no, like, they've almost now gone to this habit of trying to go anti-traditional. I know I don't like the term traditional either, or neo tango, because from my point of view, traditional means it has to have stayed in one way since the beginning and for a long period, and then there's a distinct cut-off where something has changed. And for me, what people count as traditional has continuously developed. There's always been new things in it, so trying to say something like Nuevo Tango or Neo Tango is something new annoys me, as in the same way that saying that something is traditional when it's not the original form of it and has constantly developed, so you can't really take a snapshot over time or snapshots over time and say these are all the same. So it's really odd. So I'm trying. What I would like to see, sort of in the next sort of 10 years, is people just calling things tango, and therefore and then actually segregate things into traditional and neo, so you know exactly what those are, and then just have general tango events which all cover everything. So things like what you do with having a whole range of music, having the what people call traditional music. I assume when you do your tandas, you're doing sort of tandas of 3 songs plus then cortina, which when you probably look at sort of overall spectrum of music that can be played at a tango event, probably a quarter of it is probably what people would call traditional music, and then you've got the other 3/4 which can have music which is similar to traditional, sort of things like maybe, I don't know if you can piazzolla as non-traditional tango music.
Well, I did.
He's in our cortina.
He is in our cortina, so it's all a bit controversial there.
and we'll play things like Romantica as our cortinas as well. And what are they based on? They're a modern band, but they're playing things in a relatively traditional way.
Yeah. So.
But this idea of having sort of general tango, one of the festivals that we went to was England International, and you had Warren Robinson there, and he did an introduction that basically said what they promote is happy tango. They said what we all really want is for people to take up tango, enjoy it, and grow the scene so that we get lots of new people coming in and wanting to stay. And he said the best possible way that you could do that is to dance with beginners, encourage people, and let people enjoy themselves, be it, you know, because their event offers both alternative and traditional music, lots of live music. But this idea of happy tango, I thought, you know what, that'd be so nice, because we've all met our challenges as we've been learning and come across those moments where actually it doesn't bring you much happiness. And actually you don't need that. I think it could be happy, inclusive tango.
Yeah, I get a sense that you've had moments in tango where you weren't particularly happy then from going to events.
I mean, I found it really tough because it was so new to me to be able to do any form of dancing, and my biggest fear when I started was public dancing in front of anybody. So, you know, drunk dancing at a wedding was the only thing that I would do, because it terrified me. So some of the events that I went to when I felt like I was being watched and judged and not very welcome there, actually at that point I probably could have stepped out of it, and it was only because we had a really supportive teacher in Fernando who was just brilliant and really kind throughout. And then I went to Eduardo's event at South Bank at a time when I felt a bit rubbish about it all. And I danced there, and I found people watching me dance and smiling at me. And it was like a whole new world in a good way. Yeah, sorry, they weren't laughing. And it had a completely different atmosphere. And it was that I thought, oh, actually, this could be really different.
Yeah, it does make a difference, like going to an event where people actually just present that sort of positive and encouraging view to you. So similar thing happened to us when we went to our first Malonga, by which time I think we were already moved out of that as a traditional route, and we're starting to do sort of like new Evo, more open embrace stuff, even to traditional music, and just dance, and obviously with the background of Latin and ballroom, putting parts of that into it and doing the fusion stuff. And you could just see the hate in some people's eyes that somehow we were, even though we wouldn't have absolutely no effect with them, we were not interacting with them in any way, somehow that was damaging their view of tango or whatever. And then it's...
Yeah, well, I mean, I was asked to, you know, talk about traditional orchestras, and I said the only one that I knew that I really enjoy the Rodriguez foxtrots, and I thought I'd said something horrific. You know, the reaction I got was pretty extreme, which I had no idea the minefield that you step into.
Yeah, I think I've got to that point now where, well, as part of it is I really don't mind if you do get those other people who look horrified at you when you say something, providing you can sort of back it up. So saying that you do enjoy the piece of music, that's your own personal preference. I think
it gets easier to say those things the more experienced you are, and once you've been doing it a while, you worry less. But at first, everything's so new, and you're just trying to please everyone, and it's much more intimidating then. So to look around the room and get a few smiling faces is what you need as a beginner, I think.
Yeah, as I say, this goes back to the generals of trying to please everyone. I think going in with the attitude of trying to please everyone is important. But you also have to realise that you can go in with please, and that's sort of building a bridge. It's up to them if they choose to come and cross that bridge with you or meet you in the middle of it. You can't then just use that bridge to cross over, then put yourself in sort of a place where you're really unhappy all the time. So that's, I think, is really key with it. So then, probably be the last question. Have you, since you started running events and obviously hopefully with some degree of success so far, have you, when you go to other people's events, has that changed your view of other people's events, and do you sort of get an appreciation of what they're doing, or has it just sort of, and do you now just sort of analyse how other events have worked to see how you could, what elements you want to take into your own and what you see that doesn't work that you will sort of shy away from?
I mean, first off, I now always wash up my cups at any events that I go to, because after you wash up everyone's cups, you realise. But I have an appreciation of the work and the effort and the sort of like personal investment that goes into these events now, the worry, the anticipation of it all. So I have a sort of newfound respect for people.
More appreciative of other people's events, yeah, definitely. And yeah, if you see things that are well done or good ideas, they all go in the bank, kind of thing. And think, oh, that's something we could maybe incorporate. Or things that don't work, you say, oh, we must remember to avoid doing something like that.
Yeah, that's probably a good place to end there. Is there anything that you particularly want to say on this interview which we haven't covered?
Not from my point of view. Nothing that you want to add. Only that it's really nice to sort of grow the network, and we really appreciate your support and spreading the word. And obviously we advertise your festival at our events. But I hope that the alternative scene will continue to grow, because there seems to be a lot of support coming through for it. Yeah,
that's good, thank you. So we'll finish there. So Tango Libre have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. I'll put links in the description below. James also has an Instagram account which has a Tango Libre section on it. So again, we'll find the link for that and put that below. Keep an eye on all their pages, so when they restart their events, you know when they're happening. And I'd like to say thank you to Nikki and James for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.